Welcome to the Ops MVS Event Management and Automation 14.0 New Feature video series. This video will cover the default automation of system critical messages. Today's agenda will start with an overview of the new functionality provided by the default automation of system critical message feature, followed by a detailed list of the prerequisites required for its use. We will review the required user configuration, then describe the operation of the feature, including all its benefits. Finally, we will provide a summary of everything discussed during the presentation. In this section, we'll discuss the business needs addressed by the default automation rule feature and the functionality required to meet these business needs. Thousands of messages are received on ZOS on a daily basis, and among them, many of those messages are critical to ZOS components in the ZOS environment. When not detected, they can lead to a potential system or business outage. Many customers have dedicated automated SMEs who are constantly creating new rules for new messages. However, this in most cases is a reactive process to be captured and become actionable the next time it happens. With this capability, Ops MVS will be able to detect most critical messages received on ZOS and allow customers to define default actions. This is particularly important for large service providers. They have lots of systems to monitor and they do not have operators at all the consoles. This sounds like an easy requirement to satisfy, but there are a few hurdles we had to overcome. Ops MVS does nothing for an event or message without a rule that matches, and all automation in response to an event or message has to be written by the customer. Until now, there is no easy way to detect events or messages that are not handled. You can tell whether a rule fired, but not whether the rule took action. The first thing we needed to address was to add a mechanism in Ops to track if a rule's execution resulted in an action being taken and what action was taken. With our approach, there's no need to modify existing rules because a new rule type of default has been introduced that executes after all other matching rules have completed. Default rules will only execute when no action was taken by previous rules. For message events in particular, a default rule will only fire for WTORs or messages with descriptor codes of types 1, 2, 3, or 11. Those descriptor codes identify a critical message, something that needs attention. So how do we identify that actions have been taken? We've enhanced a number of existing commands and functions that are not strictly information gathering. This excludes actions like a reply, or submit to operator command or send an alert. These updated commands will set a new internal action taken flag and a bit mask to indicate the type of action taken. For each of these updated commands, we will provide a corresponding configuration parameter to allow these commands to set the action taken flag. We have also updated the ops log to report the action taken. We delivered ready-to-use sample default rules and rex execs to provide default actions for message events, API events, and command events, and time-limited exceeding events. We've included example actions for setting events to Alert Central or IBM Netcool, and creating tickets in service management tools. Associated with the 26 enhanced commands and functions, there are 26 new configuration parameters that indicate that the command should register an action was taken for this event. They all start with setAction.someName, and where the someName is the ops command or an address environment or a function. Specifying yes means that whenever the command or function is invoked in a rule, the action taken flag is set and the appropriate bit in the action list will be set. When you specify no, then the command or function will not automatically do this. even when you specify no, it's still possible to have an individual rule indicate an action was taken, and we'll cover that in an upcoming slide. Here's a complete list of the new set action configuration parameters for those 26 enhanced commands. The settings are viewable via the Ops View Params panel 4.1.1. Earlier I mentioned that set action parameter can be overridden. You can do this with the following new function, ops action. Ops action is used to query and set or reset these flags. The syntax is simple, function name and a single letter operation code. Ops action function returns the name associated to a specific bit in the action taken bit mask. This would be the name of the address environment or the function involved. Let's review the new default rule type again. We have a rule type that can be activated within AOF and has some very special properties. You specify the event type that you want. It could be a message, a command, USS, any of the different event types with the exception of EOM. It executes after all other matching rules of the event type have been executed. Next is determining if an action was taken. This is done without the need to modify any existing rules. So if you have a bunch of rules that do things, whether they update SQL tables, issue WTO, or issue operator commands, anything along those lines, if they take any actions that are in the set of actions that are controlled by the set action set of params, then a default rule will see if an action was taken. The next key property is that a default rule will only execute when no action was taken by the previous rules. For messages that had no actions, WTORs and messages with descriptor fields 1, 2, 3, or 11, the rule will be processed. These rules operate in the same environment as normal rules for the event type. So the same set of AOF variables are available. For example, for default message rule, you will have available message.id, message.text. For a default command rule, you'll have command.name or command.jobname, etc. Default action rule can also set the same type of return variables that the normal rule type can set. And lastly, the default action rules are also subject to the same restrictions on what functions and host commands that can be called. In particular, anything that has a built-in wait is suppressed or not allowed at all. So what kind of samples are going to be provided? Because our initial use case was to identify unhandled events, most of our samples are going to record something in the RDF table about a particular event type. So we provided samples to record an API event to the RDF table, same with command and message events, request rules, time limit rules, and USS rules. The content for these in the RDF table will be the same for each type, but in distinct tables so that they are very easy to separate. You can simply go to 2.6 to see the list of tables created. For each of the events that are recorded, you will see the event type, event ID, and the event text, and the timestamp when the last occurred and a usage count. We are not going to record a separate RDF record for each event as it occurs. We'll have one record for each event ID with both the usage count and the timestamp that it last occurred. For the case of messages, in particular with WTORs or the messages with descriptor codes of 1, 2, 3, or 11, we can do a little more than just recording. When integrating with Alert Central, unlike other samples we've delivered in the past, these will only fire when no other action is taken, allowing you to send an alert to AC to elevate or expose or notify someone when a critical message has been issued and no actions have taken place. The added benefit of integrating with AC is that you can send the request to close that alert. We also provide samples to send an alert to AP, Alert Manager, send an event to IBM's NetCool or other service managers such as ServiceNow. To go along with the sample rules, here are some supporting sample recs execs. These are called from one or more of the sample default rules, and you'll be able to leverage these when you begin to build your own rules. Here is a stripped down version of the op-d message default sample rule. In the init section, we set the name of the underlying RDF table we'll be using, and in the proc section, which will be driven when no other action has been taken for a message, we'll first check the message ID against an exclusion list that you will maintain. If it is not in the exclusion list for a particular rule type, we call another subroutine to record the event in the table. The exclusion list is simply a set of message IDs, including wildcards. This allows you to easily keep from recording something you already know about or seen before. The prerequisites for this feature are the base code ops MVS 14.0 with the ops MVS feature PTF LU06695. To activate this feature, you should apply the feature PTF LU06695, restart ops MVS, deploy the sample AOF default rules to a rule set, deploy the sample recs to a dataset in the sysexec concatenation, and enable one or more of the default rules. Thousands of messages are received on ZOS on a daily basis, and among them, many of those messages are critical to the ZOS environment your business is run on. When not detected, they can lead to a potential system or business outage. With this capability, OpsMVS will be able to detect most critical messages received on ZOS and allow customers to define default actions to ensure these messages get noticed. OpsMVS provides this capabilities by delivering new actions taken detection for AOF rules, Rex functions to support that actions taken, new default rule type that is processed after all other rules complete and executes only when no actions have taken place, and sample rules for events that have no automation. For more detailed information about this product, click the link for the product page.